One thing that I've ran across a lot in my career is that people think I have land, it's worth gold. And it's sometimes the market, it's kind of like that. But most of the time, land is not a very liquid asset. It doesn't sell very quick unless you price it really aggressive. So you need to know how to price it to put yourself in the ballpark of selling it right. And we're going to talk about that right now. Good afternoon, everybody. We're doing a little walk and talk today, trying to get my steps in. We're gonna be talking about some land like always. Shoot, agents, homeowners, landowners, investors, everybody has a hard time pricing land. So we're not gonna dive too deep into all the figures. And then one thing I wanna disclose too, since we are walking and talking, it's hard to pull up figures. So we're gonna use round numbers. And the key here is don't try to catch me in some slip up, right? Because that's not the goal here. The key is pay attention to the equation and then take it a step further on how you need to use it in your application. The other thing we can talk about is location, location, location. I've had properties where I've sold for a couple $1,000s an acre. I had a property I sold for $96,000 an acre. It just depends on the location of that property and zoning of that property. Those are two big driving factors on any piece of property. If it's zoned commercial or industrial, it's gonna usually fetch more money than say agriculture or residential or rural. So there's three main things that I pay attention to when we're starting to price land. What does a building lot cost? And what does big acreage cost? And so for the easiness of this, we're gonna say 1 to 5 acres will be a building lot, right? So somewhere around 1 to 5 acres, the builder is not gonna be able to charge more per acre. It's really like you have a buildable lot at that point. On the far side, let's just go all the way up to like say 20 acres. Once we start getting in above that 10, 15 acre range, now we can start pricing acreage per acre at that point. You'll hear, oh, that guy got $5,000 an acre, $10,000 an acre, $15,000 an acre. And that is a good way to price it when you're talking on the big scale. So let's start with the building lot. When we're talking about building lots, what I like to do is work with the averages. And I know if our lot has easy access, it might be worth more. If it has hard access, it might be worth less. But the key is averages. If I'm pricing out a lot, say Spotsylvania, I'm gonna pull, say, a mile radius. I might work out 2, 3, 4, 5 mile radius if I need to around that lot. And I'm gonna be pulling all the comps that fit that criteria. So let's say the lot is 2 acres. I might try to do 1 to 3. Try to keep it as close as possible. And I'm never gonna be looking at price per acre when we're talking about little acreage like this or building lots, because let's say a lot's 2 acres and it's selling for $50,000. That's $25,000 an acre. It's probably not going to be the going rate if we go into the large acreage. Does that make sense? So we're just looking for how much those lots cost. And let's say I average up, we find 15 to 20 different lots and I average them up and I find the average lot for 1 to 3 acres. And I know if my lot's a little bit bigger, I'm on the higher end. It's a little bit smaller, I'm on the lower end. And then I can start thinking about other things like access. Is it cleared? Is the driveway cut in? These are all the things that we can bump up a little bit on pricing based off that building lot. But that's how I like to find the price on building lot. It's just pulling comps and understanding the averages when we look at those comps. Another thing to note back is I'll start looking back a year to even 2 years worth of data when we're looking at land versus a house where I'm only looking at 6 months worth of data and even 3 months worth of data if I can get away with it. With land, I will sometimes go back to 2 years to get those averages that we're talking about. And then we can adjust for inflation and other things like that. But I'll go back just to find the comps because there's not as many sales as homes on the market. So now let's work into the large acreage. Same concept, we're gonna find those comps. And this is where it'll make more sense for price per acre. I do wanna note the bigger the acreage, usually the better deal you get price per acre. That 300 acre tract might be selling for a couple $1,000s an acre versus that 20 acre tract that might be selling for $15,000 an acre. It does usually get a better deal the further you go. But where this will come in handy is, again, if we know the averages and we know the higher and lower ranges, the better the lot, the higher the range can go. But a notorious thing would be a timber company coming in and timbering the whole property and then trying to sell for top dollar. And I'm like, well, you've robbed all the value, plus it looks terrible, out of that property. But for easiness, let's just say I find all the comps and we're working on averages. So let's say that breaks down to $10,000 an acre. Now we can kind of get an understanding on what generally that property is running for. And you will see a clear indication of people who want too much money versus what's selling and then what closed. A good example is when I pull those comps, I will look at averages of active listings, pending listings, and closed listings. And you will just see a clear indication on average sales prices. It could be, pendings could be 12, 13, 14,000. But once they close, we finally get the sales price and there'll be that $10,000. You'll see actives 18, 20, $25,000 an acre. I mean, just wild numbers. People need to understand that just because you have land doesn't mean it's worth gold. There is a value that needs to be put on them. Let's say you're trying to price out like a 7-acre parcel or a 9-acre parcel. This is where it can kind of come in handy to use both scenarios. Or if you're trying to price out your property versus your neighbor, but you have 5 acres and they have 3 acres, we can find the average acre generally in that area. If we go back to the scenario, we know a building lot, say 2 to 5 acres is going for $50,000, and we're trying to get up to 7 acres, and we know the average lot around there, the average acre is going for $10,000 an acre. Well, now our 7-acre parcel, it's worth $70,000. You have to blend both of them because inherently there's a certain price for a builder's lot and there's a certain price for acreage. And when you blend both of them, you can get the mixed value. The big thing to keep in mind, I like to work off averages. And then once I come out to the property, I walk my client through those averages. We look at the comps and see how we hold up against them. And then we kind of make some adjustments from there and try to fine tune those comps. Well, anyway, that's going to wrap everything up, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Again, my name is Ben Quann. I'm associate broker here in Virginia. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.